And stations do that to cover themselves, and that's a good thing. That's okay in case somebody does get offended, because people's feelings do get hurt. And you're not going to agree, possibly, with everything that I have to say. And I have this conversation frequently with my 14-year-old. She says, I may not agree, and, I may not see it her way, and obviously I don't. But I tell her that I'd like to understand where she's coming from, and we talk about where and how she's come to the understanding that she has. And that's a good thing. I want to know where she's coming from. Yes, talk to your children. Sometimes they have some interesting views, stuff that ends up from the classroom and then ends up in your dining room. And sometimes you have to debunk some of the garbage that is being peddled in some of the schools. And she goes to one of the better schools in South Tampa. It's A-rated, but you got the liberal curriculum, and she's on a roll, A student, and I could not be prouder. She works hard. There's some people that have to bury their heads, in the books. That's her. And then there's those that literally could just sleep with the book and then they just memorize it. She works for everything that she has, and she couldn't make me prouder. So I love my daughter to death. She's beautiful, and I learn from her all the time. A top Republican is characterizing Obamacare as a bus going over a cliff. I really like that. Senator John Barrasso of Wyoming, he said that the current Senate bill eliminates government mandates and taxes and stabilizes health insurance markets. Now, he's a former orthopedic surgeon. He should know something about this health care deal. Senator Barrasso.
Well, I met with the president yesterday along with all the Republican senators, and we're focused on finding the 50 votes that we need to be able to make the fundamental change of rescuing people from Obamacare. The prices have gone up. The options have gone down. Many people are finding themselves with only one choice on the Obamacare exchange for next year. Many places, no one is selling Obamacare.
Look, I do.
Obamacare is a bus going over a cliff. The Democrats are saying stay on board, and I'm saying we're just trying to rescue people from this collapsing Obamacare debacle.
Yeah, and what a lot of people are not talking about is what Rand Paul has said, is that there's a lot of goodies in it, what they call pork, stuff in the bill, stuff in there that there's no oversight. This is the darnest thing that's wrong with this country, is that there's just this entitlement, and it is entitlements that I've talked about this, that people are on this system that are not paying into the system. And that's the problem. They're not paying, and they're not contributing. Not the people that can't, not the people that are disabled or mentally challenged or whatever it might be that they cannot. It's not, or seniors that are retired that are not working. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about the deadbeats that come in here and don't contribute to society. This stuff was managed like a real business should be managed. The government just doesn't do a good job of doing that. Hopefully that they can get a better handle on this and can control the spending. We have to have much more responsibility when it comes to our money situation here, because you know what? There's only so much you can print, and devaluing the dollar, it's not a good thing. And to get people dependent upon the system, it's just not a good thing. It's just, and I blame a lot of this on the Dems. Not all. But Republicans, it's a chance for them to step up, and there seems to be some headway, and the general consensus is doing much more of that. And I think it's a beautiful thing when people start really looking at it intelligently, rationally. A lot of this is a communications issue, and Gingrich, I have said this all along, and a lot of people have said this, he was one of the smartest guys on the stage that ran for president. Very sharp, very articulate. Here is Gingrich today. Newt Gingrich.
And this is, again, where the failure of communication. You have states where there are 42% increases, 60% increases. I think one state has a 116% increase in premiums. And we're not driving that home. This is an unsustainable system where people actually are losing real coverage. I mean, if you have to buy an expensive Obamacare insurance and it has a $6,000 deductible, the very people he was trying to help don't have $6,000.
All right, here's the biggest question. Will Mitch McConnell, will he be able to get this done? Will he be able to thread the needle?
Well, I think he will thread it, and I think he has been very effective as a leader of the Republican Party in the Senate. In fact, I don't think they'd be a majority today without his leadership and his aggressiveness in the campaigns and in putting together that majority. And I think that he thought they were further down the road than they were. They had one out of every four senators in the Republican side meeting. The other three out of every four said, wait a second, I'm not in the room. And part of this was transactional. There were members who were not going to vote before the 4th of July. And they just decided they weren't in the room, they didn't have a chance to look at it, and they want to be part of the mix. There are a number of modifications that can be made that will improve the bill, and my hope is that Mitch is going to listen to everybody, find a way to get an improved version, and then take it to the floor before the end of July, and prepare for a September conference with the House. Legislative process is really hard.
Yeah, it is, and that's why our founding fathers actually put it in to protect us. It was protections put in, and thank goodness for that. Now, the latest Fox News poll showed that 27% of voters support the bill, while 54% oppose. This is on both sides. I think a lot of people are, quite frankly, afraid that they're not going to be able to have coverage, even though the ship's going down. And they see it going down. They don't like what the options are right now, what's being said with the CBO. So they're going to have to come up with something, and they're drawing it. I believe they're going to get this done. I have hope that they will. It's going over the cliff, like the analogy. The Democrats are saying that they want to stay on board. They want to go down with the ship. We're just trying to rescue people from the collapse. Obamacare debacle, Barrasso said. We're just trying to rescue you, but they don't want the salvation. They don't want the lifeboats from the Republicans. No, not them. Not with their savior, Barack Hussein Obama, of his legacy. But that's the only thing left, and because it's got his name on it, it's got to pain Barack. It's got to pain him in a way to know that it is a sinking ship. Even Clinton said it was. Admittedly, I don't know if he had a brain fart or whatever when he was on the campaign trail, but he said it was the craziest thing. It's just the craziest thing. And it was, and it made news. All the networks put it on there, and then he retracted it. He said he didn't really mean it that way. Of course he did. It was a moment of truth. Everybody sees it, but again, it's because it's the mean Republicans. They want to take everybody off Medicaid and Medicare and put you over the mountain, put grandma over the mountain. Well, this was a wild scene. You can't see it, but I'll try to paint a picture for you. There was a tractor-trailer carrying pigs, and it crashed in Texas, in a Texas highway, and it burst into flames. And this happened actually this morning in rush hour. I mean, of all times, rush hour. And pretty much led to the squealing animals to run loose. See, the 18-wheeler loaded with the hogs crashed on Interstate 45 in Wilmer, south of Dallas, if you know where that is. I actually just left Dallas about 3 weeks ago. This happened about 6:30 a.m. according to KTVT in Dallas. They reported this, that the truck tipped over to its side and later caught on fire. And I'm looking at pictures here with pigs just running amok. And they're just roaming along I-45 after a fiery 18-wheeler crash southeast of Dallas. Several pigs spilled onto the road and were seen running around in traffic. As you can imagine, the crash closed the interstate in both directions, snarling traffic during rush hour this morning on I-45, shut down in Wilmer. Big rig that crashed was carrying pigs. There's your bacon. Oh, my goodness gracious. What's she going to do? Scaramucci calls Russia's story nonsense, but he's, at the same token, he's warning media. He was on Fox and Friends. Anthony Scaramucci, the former Trump advisor, at the heart of the now retracted CNN story. As you know, they retracted it, fired their analyst, but he warned today that media organizations everywhere need to tighten up editorial standards or risk their integrity, while calling the Russia collusion controversy a bunch of nonsense. And once you start to lose your integrity and your reputation as a news organization, people start to get tone deaf. They don't hear it anymore. What do you think of that? Tone deaf from CNN. I really like it. Tone deaf from MSNBC, NBC, CBS, ABC. Tone deaf. It's kind of like when you go into a supermarket, right? And you see the tabloids. Martian baby given by some movie star. Or scientists found the cure of cancer, and this, and just the craziest stories. And so you just kind of smile to yourself. And I think it's kind of the oh shucks factor with some people when they see that, where increasingly that's the deal. They just know that it's kind of entertainment value, where there are talk shows, even that I listen to, that really don't have much value to them. Not a lot of substance to it, but there's shock value to it. That's why they have shock jocks, and they're entertaining to listen to, but you don't get your news from them. They're just looking for ratings. They're just looking to shock you, and that's pretty much it. They could be fully, full of BS, but it's a show, and you're looking to be entertained. I think there needs to be a crackdown, big time, and it's really his integrity. I got to tell you, I think he's a stand-up guy, working for the president, really trying to get things done. Scaramucci, who has since been named the U.S. Export-Import Bank, he said Thursday that he merely had an encounter with the individual at a restaurant, but it was not a planned meeting. Pretty much they retracted the story of the three journalists that the network resigned. So he said he made clear to CNN that the story was not accurate, that it was defamatory. And it was a story that pretty much, defamed him. And he added that he didn't go to sue them or anything like that. And the White House has since cited the report and retraction and stepping up its complaints about the media's reporting on the controversy over Russia meddling in 2016 election. It just sounds to me this morning that Anthony Scaramucci is really trying to get well beyond this, because it really is a distraction, especially if you actually have a job to do for the president.
Like I've said to the president in our personal conversations, I'd like to serve him, like to serve the American people. The role or the job that I have is not as important to me as the overall mission. And so for me, the Russian situation, I think, is a bunch of nonsense. I've said that. I've said that on other networks.
Van Jones said the same thing.
Well, he said it, and I think it's
Big
probably
nothing burger.
That probably could be the news about the Russian story. Okay?
What do you mean?
So, I think it's a bunch of nonsense. I worked on the campaign. I worked on the transition. I think it's a bunch of nonsense. I'd like it to stop. It certainly was nonsense related to me.
Right.
It's probably nonsense related to others. And the big point about the whole thing is that the president's got a great agenda for all the American people.
So
Democrats, Republicans, race, color, and creed, doesn't matter. This president's going to do a phenomenal job for the American people.
There we go. Just shutting it down once and for all, just wanting to get back to work. And, I just was imagining myself, if I was in his position uniquely, how do you get any work done with all of this noise going on? And the fact of the matter is, if you're president, you have to continue on doing things, especially for the people that are doing the work around him. So President Donald Trump talking about the president here today. He's belting MSNBC and the Morning Joe program. Now, he was a frequently, guest on there. He did morning calls just like he did the morning calls for years with Fox and Friends, but he had a relationship with Scarborough and Brzezinski. But now they're speaking badly of Trump. Trump's not liking it too much. He says, I heard, this is a tweet this morning, I heard poorly rated at Morning Joe speaks badly of me. Don't watch anymore. Then how come IQ Crazy Mika, along with Psycho Joe, came to Mar-a-Lago 3 nights in a row around New Year's Eve and insisted on joining me? She was bleeding badly from a facelift. I said no. It was just a matter of time, given all the shade the pair have been throwing lately on Trump and his administration. So